There's a moment that happens quietly, usually without drama. It does not arrive as a crisis. No bills are overdue, no accounts are empty. It happens on an ordinary weekday evening. The kitchen is clean enough. A laptop is open on the table. A payment notification flashes briefly on a phone screen, then disappears. Nothing feels wrong. And yet there is a subtle tension that settles in the background of life. It is the sense that money is always present, even when it is not actively being discussed. It hums beneath decisions. It shapes small choices. It narrows options without announcing itself. There is no obvious mistake to point to. The person in this story has done what they were told to do. They studied, they found stable work, they pay their bills on time, they avoid extreme behavior. From the outside, everything looks fine. But over time, something changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Spending begins to feel heavier than it used to. Every purchase now carries an invisible calculation. Not panic, just friction. It is harder to say yes casually. Harder to feel relaxed about small expenses. Harder to imagine long-term flexibility. And the uncomfortable realization is this: nothing unusual happened. No financial disaster, no reckless splurge, no single bad decision. Just one purchase made years ago that quietly reshaped how every future dollar would be experienced. Not because it was irresponsible, not because it was foolish, but because it permanently changed the structure of life. This video is not about avoiding spending. It is not about discipline or sacrifice, and it is not about optimization. It is about understanding how one specific kind of purchase changes the emotional and mathematical relationship with money, often forever, even for careful, intelligent people. And once it happens, spending never quite feels the same again. The person in this story is in their early 30s. They live in a mid-sized city, not New York, not London, not rural either. Their after-tax income comes out to roughly $4,200 a month, or the European equivalent. Some months are slightly higher, some slightly lower. Rent takes $1,450. It is not luxurious. It is clean, close to work, and feels reasonable given the market. Utilities average around $180. Electricity, heating, water, internet, none of it feels excessive. Transportation depends on where you place the camera. In the US, there is a car payment, $390 a month. Insurance adds another $120. Fuel varies but averages $150. In Europe, replace that with a monthly transit pass, occasional ride shares and train tickets, around $220 total. Student loans take $320 a month. The balance is shrinking, slowly, predictably. Groceries cost about $420. Not extravagant, some cooking, some convenience. Then there are the quiet extras. 2 streaming subscriptions, 1 music service, cloud storage, a gym membership that gets used, just not as often as planned. About $160 total. Dining out happens once or twice a week. Nothing fancy, just normal social meals. That averages another $260. Travel is modest, 1 or 2 short trips a year. Budgeted monthly, that is about $140. When everything is added together, the numbers make sense. There is no obvious excess. At the end of the month, there is usually $350 to $500 left. Some of it goes into savings. Some of it disappears into irregular expenses that never quite repeat the same way. The person does not feel reckless. They feel managed. Money is handled carefully, tracked loosely, thought about often. And yet, despite steady income and reasonable behavior, there is a constant sense of tightness, not struggle, constraint. Spending does not feel free. It feels pre-allocated. And this feeling did not exist earlier in life. Something shifted. What changed was not income. Income went up over time. What changed was not discipline. If anything, discipline improved. What changed was structure. At some point in the past, one purchase turned a flexible life into a fixed one. Not because it was wrong, but because it introduced permanence. Certain purchases do not just cost money, they redesign the monthly baseline. Once that baseline is set, everything else must orbit around it. The system most people live inside rewards commitments. Long leases, multi-year loans, recurring obligations that feel normal because everyone else has them too. None of these are traps individually. They are stable, predictable, often even comforting. But together, they create a floor, a minimum cost of existing. And once that floor rises above a certain level, spending stops being about choice and becomes about allocation. The person in this story did not overspend. They upgraded their life in sensible steps. A slightly better place, a reliable vehicle, a neighborhood closer to work. Each decision made sense in isolation. What was not obvious was the cumulative effect. Flexibility slowly drained away, not because of bad behavior, but because the system does not reward reversibility. It rewards locking in. And once locked in, the margin for error narrows. This is not about blame. It is about design. The system quietly encourages one particular purchase that shifts someone from financial fluidity into financial rigidity without announcing the transition. Let's slow this down and look at the math using only what already exists in this story. The car payment is $390. Insurance is $120. Fuel averages $150. That is $660 a month tied to transportation. Over a year, that is just under $8,000. Over 10 years, ignoring inflation or changes, that is roughly $80,000. But the number itself is not the point. What matters is that $660 is not optional month to month. It exists whether income fluctuates or not, whether work feels stable or uncertain. That $660 comes out before any other decision is made. Now place that next to the monthly surplus. If $400 remains at the end of the month, then transportation alone consumes more than the entire margin. This means savings growth depends entirely on income stability. There is no buffer created by low fixed costs. There is only dependence on continuation. The same math works with housing. An extra $400 a month for a better location feels modest. Over a year, it is $4,800. Over 10 years, $48,000. Again, this is not framed as waste. It is framed as permanence. Once these costs are embedded, every future dollar has less freedom. The one purchase did not drain money suddenly. It redirected future income before it ever arrived. None of this happens because people are careless. It happens because humans adapt quickly. What once felt like a luxury becomes neutral. What once felt optional becomes baseline. Status is rarely about showing off. It is about not feeling behind, living in the same neighborhoods as peers, driving something that feels reliable and appropriate, maintaining a lifestyle that signals adulthood, stability, and progress. These signals are quiet but powerful. Identity gets wrapped into permanence. This is just how life works now. Once identity attaches to a fixed cost structure, questioning it feels uncomfortable, not financially, psychologically. Reducing fixed commitments can feel like regression, even if it increases freedom. And because everyone else is doing roughly the same thing, the system reinforces itself. No one talks openly about how constrained they feel, so everyone assumes they're alone in feeling it. They're not. Nothing collapses if this pattern continues. Bills get paid, life goes on. But options slowly narrow. Changing jobs becomes harder. Taking time off feels riskier. Geographic flexibility disappears. Every decision must be filtered through income continuity. The future becomes dependent on maintaining the present. Not desperate, just constrained. It is not failure. It is a quieter cost, fewer paths available. Financially calm people are not necessarily wealthier. They simply protect margin. They think less about returns and more about resilience. They value time flexibility more than visible upgrades. They avoid purchases that permanently raise the floor unless the trade-off is unavoidable. Not because they are minimalists, but because they understand structure. They see money as a tool for optionality, not validation. And they understand that calm comes from having space, not from having more. This is not advice. It is observation. The one purchase that changes how you spend forever is not extravagant. It is the one that quietly locks future income into fixed obligations. Once made, every dollar feels different. This video is not financial advice. It is simply a description of how structure shapes experience. Nothing needs to be done immediately. Nothing needs to be undone. But seeing the system clearly tends to soften the anxiety around it. And sometimes clarity alone is enough. If this helped clarify things, consider subscribing.